Welcome everybody once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm Aaron Bloxel with my co-host, Mr. Matt Balzer, not Barzal. Almost said it. Barzal's on my mind because the Islanders did the unthinkable. Columbus did the unthinkable. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs so far. I'm pretty sure we've already touched on the sweeps of the Columbus Blue Jackets and the New York Islanders. You want to review those series at all before we get into the other series?
I think we touched on them well enough, but I gotta say, here we go. Just live, Carolina just won in double overtime.
No!
The second round of the playoffs. The defending champions are out. That's why I'm sort of not in my normal spot because I had to have the game on in the background. So there we go. A live reaction. The Carolina Hurricanes just won in double overtime. Just crazy.
Are they challenging it?
We're waiting. I'll wait for a replay. But man, you want to talk about the year of the upsets? We got Dallas moving on. We got Carolina.
Well, and here's the thing: is I don't think they're necessarily upsets. I think to get into the playoffs now is a real feat for any team, and I think it's anybody's opportunity just when they get into the playoffs. You look back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was 21 teams and 16 got in. You're going to have some bad teams, but now that there's 31 teams, every team that makes the playoffs is good. Like, look at some of the underdogs that made it through. Columbus, Dallas. Their goalies are up for the Vezina finalists, right?
Yeah.
And, you got just some incredible players that have moved on. So I see you're still checking out. Did you get a goal scorer?
Yeah. So Brock McGinn. Yeah, another bottom 6-4 scoring a series clinching goal. Just crazy. Just sort of popped out in the slot and he was able to get by Holtby. So
some crazy second round matchups which we're going to review on Friday. But let's get into some of the other series. Let's start with the one that we just watched. Assuming that goal's good and standing up, double overtime, Game 7, Carolina wins. Talk about a weird series where a home team kept winning every game. And I didn't think Carolina had it in them, but you know what? They've shown they've got some depth. No Svechnikov, no Ferland in this series. And they've just been playing some really good hockey. I think Rod Brind'Amour has really dialed them in.
Yeah, it's just like everything, and the big thing was goaltending too. It's just like and the momentum shift. So we were talking about each team winning on home, like Washington won like 6-0 in Game 5, and then Carolina came back and answered. But some of their big guns like Jordan Staal, I think did like an excellent job of shutting or at least helping shut down as best as they could the Washington's top line. But Staal had the big tying goal in the third period. And then, it's just absolutely insane. Just especially like once when I thought Svechnikov and Ferland being out, I didn't think they had like the depth. But the two Finns in Aho and Teravainen, both had excellent series. And Carolina's defense, they got great depth. I know Hamilton got posterized there on the one play on that one Ovechkin goal that he helped set up Connolly in Game 5. But man, it's just crazy.
And one of the things I noticed from Carolina in that series is how Washington always got off to a quick start. Like tonight, Washington was just absolutely peppering them. It looked like it was their game to win. But as the game went on, Washington almost lost interest, and Carolina gained confidence. And I saw that time and time again. Game 3, this game, and even in Game 6, we saw it. And they found a way to come through. And surprisingly, like to me, Peter Mrazek hasn't. He's not the big name goalie, but he's played a great series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with him, like the last 2 years, he's really struggled. But like the first couple of years that he played in Detroit, he was excellent. He looked like to be like one of like those rising goalie, up and coming rising goalies. But then he faltered, and this year Carolina just gave him like that 1-year contract, and it's like, hey, show me what you got, sort of thing. And he's answered the bell between him and Curtis McElhinney, who I know he hasn't played in this series. if it wasn't for both of those guys, they would not be in the playoffs this year.
And I think missing TJ Oshie was definitely a series changer as well for Washington. There's just a big player to not have in the lineup. So Washington is out. The defending Cup champs are gone. This Stanley Cup this year is wide freaking open. All of the top seeds are pretty much gone now. I believe all the division winners are out.
Yeah, I would say Nashville, Tampa Bay, Washington, and Calgary are all out. And with that, with Calgary and Tampa Bay both being eliminated, that's the first time in NHL history that both the number one seeds in each conference were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. All right, now I'm just getting the full replay. Is just Mr. Game 7 himself, Justin Williams, threw it out into the slot, and McGinn tipped it in. So, Justin Williams, you want to talk about one of the most clutch guys ever in playoff history, does it once again.
I believe his Game 7 record now is 8-1.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely insane. But, yeah, so that sets up some weird series. But let's talk about the other Eastern Conference series. We've already touched on the sweeps. We just touched on Washington, Carolina. And I am losing my mind. So Toronto-Boston, Game 7 last night. Mr. Plus Minus, Jake Gardiner, absolutely improved over last year. Instead of a -5, he was only a -3 and was only responsible for two goals against.
And he is now tied for the worst plus minus in NHL history with a -8 in career Game 7. So I know it wasn't all his fault. I know Anderson, especially that first goal that he let in, that was not a good goal to let in. But I think some of the things that really stood out to me was like Austin Matthews' ice time, especially in the third period.
Yeah, it was so bizarre.
Yeah,
even more bizarre to hear Mike Babcock blame Kadri for not allowing him to have the option to play Nylander with Matthews because of him being suspended.
Oh, man. But, hey, at least good news. Kadri's suspension is now officially over. You can enjoy him next season. But
I don't think he's going to be back next season for Toronto. I have a feeling that that's one of the guys that Toronto's going to ship out.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is weird with Matthews' ice time. Like we saw, he just had under 19 minutes of ice time, but he only played just over 6 minutes of ice, or just got over 6 minutes of ice time in the third period in a season-ending or a series-clinching game, which is crazy. Like he had Patrick Marleau going out there like in the final 5 minutes and stuff. Where Marleau he was not good this series really, and especially with the way Matthews had been going. He had 5 goals in the 4 games prior to that. You think you want your hottest hand out there as much as possible. But the one thing I did see, like what in Babcock's post-game interview, is like nobody asked him about ice time, because I know here in Vancouver, one of the big things is we keep a track of players' ice times. So if we see something that's just like that's not right, or like, why is Brandon Sutter getting 22 minutes of ice time over like Pettersson and Horvat? We bring that stuff up, but man, I wonder how hot Mike Babcock's seat is going to go into next season. Like I know there was like some rumors about him and Kyle Dubas maybe having a little bit of tension there, but Babcock smoothed that out, said there was none or whatever. But you gotta really think that like Dubas wasn't Babcock wasn't Dubas's pick as head coach, and Babcock still has another 4 years left on his contract. So I don't think he's going anywhere, but there will be some question marks coming up next season, especially now that you have to re-sign Marner, Kapanen, Janssen, and Jake Gardiner as well is up. So, but yeah, it's going to be a really interesting off season for the Leafs going into next year.
I also thought that Corrali's goal, the third goal, was a bit weak on Anderson's part. Looked good. I mean, I don't know what Hainsey was doing on the play, but Corrali went around him at the blue line, walked in, and just took a almost like Alex Edler's overtime goal. That's exactly what it reminded me of. And I think they found a weak spot on Anderson, is going glove side on him from that spot. But, man, the Marchand and Bergeron line, no matter if they had Pasternak or Heinen on it, they played absolutely outstanding this series. Marchand was clutch again. I can't believe Don Cherry pointed it out that Marchand during the national anthem, he stood still like a statue. And they showed him, and it was almost freaky, like how zoned in he was. But just to see him ramp, like he's a very underrated defensive player as well. That's why him and Bergeron kill penalties together. But man, Bergeron's so good on the draw, so good at shutting down Tavares as much as he could throughout the series. And, Boston came through, and I hate to say it, even Zdeno Chara had a great game. Despite the Leafs' speed, he still played a fairly good game, and Tuukka Rask came up big early on in Game 7.
Yeah, and that's who I was going to bring up. Tuukka Rask, man, is talk about like a guy that Boston fans sometimes give a hard time to. But man, in that game he came up clutch, especially in the third period. There was like that tic-tac-toe play. I think somewhere like I think it might have been midway through the third.
Hyman was the finisher.
Yeah, man, that was a heck of a save. Because if Toronto scores there, they're right back in the game. But he shuts the door there. And Zdeno Chara, a cool stat here. That was his 13th career Game 7 that he's played, and that's tied for the most in the NHL with Scott Stevens and Patrick Waugh. So and Ovechkin and Backstrom, they just played in their 12th Game 7 tonight. So they're right behind them, which is absolutely crazy.
That's a lot of Game 7s, a lot of pressure-filled moments, that's for sure. Let's go to the West now. So, by the way, so that sets up the East. We're going to see the Islanders against Carolina, starting off in New York, a new building. They're back into their old building. Not Nassau Coliseum, but that boggles my mind. I wish they could still play on Long Island, where the fans are absolutely insane. I hope the fans continue there. And then, of course, it sets up Columbus in Boston. And we'll give our picks for this on Friday. But, man, two series where I think every team left, they thought, hey, if we made the playoffs, great. And, now that all the big teams are gone, it's wide open. So let's go to the West. Let's start off with St. Louis upsetting the Winnipeg Jets. I know the Jet fans are a little upset. There's probably going to be changes there. There's a chance that either Laine or Ehlers is going to be moved because of salary cap issues. But, man, what a series for St. Louis. Their back end of Pietrangelo and this other name escapes me, Parayko. Yeah, it shows to me that you still need big bodies in the NHL at playoff times because those guys were physical all series long. But, man, Ryan O'Reilly, great playoff performance. And they got some good performances out of Braden Shen and Vladimir Tarasenko.
And Jaden Schwartz.
Jaden Schwartz, yeah. How could I forget him? Scoring not only a huge game winner in game 5, but then all the goals in Game 6.
Just insane to get a hat trick like that. Well, to go from scoring with 15 seconds left in the third period of Game 5 to open the game like I think it was like a minute something into the Game 6 and just continue that on is just crazy. But I think I'm gonna say crazy a lot here because that's what these playoffs have been. Yeah. But like Winnipeg only had 6 shots on goal through 2 periods in Game 6.
That baffled me because where's the desperation there, right?
Yeah, like I know the Blues have been a pretty good team since the coaching change, but 6 shots on goal through 2 periods with the season on the line, that it just boggles my mind. And Hellebuck I thought was having a heck of a game there as well, but the Jets, they just couldn't get anything done offensively until it was way too late. But yeah, it's like Jets, man. They had their struggles going into the playoffs. I think their last 25 games, they were 1 game below 500, which still baffles me that with all that talent, they weren't able to get things going towards the end of the season. But yeah, it's the Canadian drought for the Stanley Cup continues into next season, which I'm not complaining just because it's Toronto and Calgary. Winnipeg, I wouldn't mind seeing winning, but those 2 teams in Calgary and Toronto, I'm really glad they're.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a non-factor. I mean, when Chicago won the Cup, just about 95% of their team were Canadians. So, as was the Los Angeles Kings outside of Kopitar, and Brown, they basically had all Canadian teams. But so St. Louis ends up pulling off that upset. They looked really good doing it. Let's go over to the Calgary, Colorado series where, as good as Mike Smith played, they just had no answer for Nathan MacKinnon. And then Landeskog and Rantanen, how they wrapped it up. They they absolutely ramped up their game. They added Cale Makar, who absolutely played fantastic for them. Tyson Barrie looked great. And even Philip Grubauer gave them goaltending that they needed at the right time.
Man, it's just like whenever Colorado's going to be playing in these playoffs, I will be watching because Nathan MacKinnon, my goodness, it's just every time he steps on the ice, you just want to see what he's going to do. I'll continue to say that until they get eliminated. But him and Mikko Rantanen, just fantastic. Really came up huge. And then Colin Wilson had the big Game 5 as well for them. But yeah, Philip Grubauer, he was one of those question marks that I thought I was like, well, will he continue his hot play going into the playoffs? And he did just so. Like that Game 4, that overtime save on Backlund when he's down and out and he just lifts his left toe up to Rob Backlund, and then Rantanen ends up scoring the overtime winner later in that game. Just great, but he was rock solid. But the Flames' big guns, Johnny Gaudreau, he had the penalty shot.
Yeah.
And then right before Rantanen scored the second goal in Game 5, he had a breakaway right before that, and he missed on that chance too. But him, Monahan, Lindholm, Tkachuk, like outside of like that opening game, they were really quiet. Like I think Landeskog, MacKinnon, and Rantanen combined outscored all of Calgary's forwards these playoffs in point totals as well. So it's there'll be a lot of question marks going into next season in Calgary, especially James Neal as well, who was a healthy scratch in that final game. Still 4 more years on that contract at $5.75 million. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Another interesting offseason for another Canadian team there to see what they do.
For me, the turning point of that series was Game 2. And in overtime, Grubauer made an unreal save. I believe it was off Monahan. And literally off the rebound, they fed it up to MacKinnon. And he went all the way down the ice and scored to win it. And, if Grubauer lets that in, it's 2-0 Calgary, and they've got control of the series. But another guy that really stood out in that series, you mentioned Colin Wilson already, but JT Compher, how many hits did him and I'm running –
Matt Nieto might be.
No, the guy that played for Columbus.
Oh, for Colorado?
Yes. Matt, I think his name is Matt something. But I'm drawing a blank for some reason now. But it's the guy that got hit in the face for
Ian Cole. Ian Cole. There we go.
Not Ian Cole. He's a forward.
No. Another former Blue Jacket.
He got hit in the face. Matt Calvert. There we go.
Oh, Matt Calvert. There we go.
Yeah, so Matt Calvert and JT Compher absolutely had a physical presence in that game or in that series. Calvert seemed to be in the minds of Calgary's top players. And the hit that Compher threw on Giordano at the blue line a couple of times, Giordano stepped up to shoot, and he just got absolutely leveled. And so they were finishing their hits, and I think that started playing a role on some of Calgary's top guys. Next series, you predicted this one right. Not a lot of people saw it coming. But Dallas upsets Nashville, and I'm going to start off with Ben Bishop playing fantastic, but Pekka Rinne, a great series for goaltending. But the big guns for Dallas came through: Sagan, Ben, Radulov, Klingberg. Absolutely fantastic. Even Heiskanen played well. Yeah. But, man, that goal that Radulov scored where Jamie Benn threw Ryan Ellis halfway around the boards, again, goes to show me you need some physical players to win in the playoffs.
Man, yeah, and the Stars' big guns, man, they really stepped up when they needed to. Because especially when I look at that team, I still don't think they have the best depth moving forward. But Matt Zuccarello had a great series. Rupe Hintz and Jason Dickinson, they got on the board. But it'll be interesting to see how they go in the next round. But Ben Bishop, man, this guy has been an absolute monster this year. He was he named a finalist for the Vezina Trophy. I think I was looking at his stats from just after the All-Star break, I believe. He played in 14 games. His save percentage was over 950. So this guy has basically been unbeatable, and he basically continued that into playoffs because I think he's at like a 940 save percentage in the first round. So if there's a guy that can just keep carrying his team into the next round, as long as he gets a little bit of goal support, Ben Bishop is that guy. And you brought up John Klingberg and Miro Heiskanen. Man, like Heiskanen, he led all guys in ice time in that game 6 for the Stars, at least. I think over 32 minutes in that game. I think him and Klingberg, man, I'm hoping they can continue their play on. And Esa Lindell also had a great series. It's just the other guys, like Roman Polak still frightens me with him being in the top there. But yeah, it'll be interesting because like in their next series, it'll come down to goaltending versus the Blues' depth in that next round. So, but Nashville, that's another team. They went all in once again this year. Will they make some changes? But
Nashville's probably going to be making some changes.
Yeah, and Nashville, they didn't score a power play goal all series long. They had the worst power play in the NHL during the regular season, and they didn't get one in the playoffs. So that's another thing that killed them.
Well, and unfortunately, a lot of their forwards disappeared. You didn't see the playoffs out of Arvidsson or Forsberg. Kyle Turris, all these guys kind of disappeared. One of the things I was going to ask you is most NHL starters, the Fleury's, Vasilevsky's, even Jacob Markstrom's, a lot of main starters played 60, 65 games this year. Ben Bishop only played 42 games this year. Him and Khudobin pretty much splitting it. But you look at that, and you look at the Islanders with Leonard and Greiss, where they both only played just around the 40 mark. I almost think that's the way the NHL is going to start to go. That 60 plus is just too much nowadays for a goaltender. But here's the question I wanted to ask you: if you're Tampa, would you rather have Bishop or Vasilevsky?
For me, it's a bit of a wash because I am a huge Vasilevsky fan. It's just I think in that series, just everything went wrong for Tampa Bay. Like Ben Bishop, the guy has a huge playoff pedigree. Like going from Tampa Bay now over to Dallas, the guy just wins in the playoffs. I know he hasn't won the Cup yet, but he got Tampa Bay to the Stanley Cup final against Chicago. He got them to a conference final against the Rangers. And if it wasn't for some of his injury troubles,
I was gonna say, if he hasn't got hurt yet this year, but usually he gets hurt at some point in the playoffs.
But at least they with Khudobin there, they got a really good backup goalie because I think in 30-something games he had like a 920-something save percentage, so he wasn't even that far back from Bishop during the regular season. So as long as Bishop stays healthy, because usually you never know, he gets those lower body injuries all the time, but as long as he can stay healthy and the Stars' big guns can continue to go, I can see them maybe going to that third round. And who would be happy if they got to the third round? The New York Rangers, because they get a first-round pick from the Stars. Because of the Zuccarello trade. So we'll see how that goes.
So that series starts tomorrow. Dallas is in St. Louis as well. Columbus in Boston. Those two series actually start tomorrow night already. Finally, the last playoff series, the one with one of the craziest third periods we've ever seen in our lives. Vegas Golden Knights against the San Jose Sharks. San Jose completes the comeback, being down 3-1, and they're able to come back winning 4-3. But what a weird way to do it, but also what a great way, a great power play that was non-existent all game all of a sudden got hot at the right time.
Yeah, because it's just crazy because it's just like I hate how it happened, but I love how the game finished. that was the thing. But the Vegas Golden Knight fans, welcome to the NHL now. So I think still. But yeah, it's like, as we mentioned, Joe Pavelski is just sort of a fluke thing off the faceoff. Vegas was up 3-0 about like midway through the third period, where off a faceoff, Pavelski won the faceoff. And usually you get like those centermen, usually you might give like a shove or something like that, and he can sort of just cross-check him a little bit in the chest, and that threw him off balance. And since Pavelski won the faceoff on the right-hand side, Stastny, who was that right winger, usually that guy kicks out, is going to kick out to that point man off the face-off. And when he was kicking out, he sort of bumped into Pavelski a little bit, and he fell super awkwardly, and he was knocked out cold on the ice. And the crappy thing here is that none of the officials put their hands in the air, and none of them, I believe, saw it. And play continued for a little bit before they finally blew the play down. And then they discussed, and then they kicked Cody Eakin out for a cross check. And the thing is, there wasn't really much explanation. Like even like the NHL's explanation from the series supervisor Don Van Massenhoven. This was what he says. Like the refs called a cross-checking penalty for an infraction that caused a significant injury. In their judgment, the infraction and its results merited a major penalty. That's all the NHL has said about this incident. But yeah, if you look at the replay, it's just bad luck, and especially Joe Pavelski. He's already taken a beat in this series, and he's one of those really good players in the NHL that you don't want to see go down. So I'm hoping he's all right. But yeah, it sparked 4 straight power play goals on that power play.
And the way they won it in overtime, Gaudreau hardly playing at all, ends up getting the breakaway and scoring. My thoughts on that incident was, I mean, Eakin did what you see all the time. And it just, to me, looked like as Pavelski lost his balance, him and Stastny, their legs got tangled up. And it was just awkward. You saw Pavelski fall awkwardly. Unfortunately, he got hurt. I hope he comes back. The Sharks need him if they're going to continue to go far in the playoffs. But on the initial play, I didn't think there was going to be a penalty. Then I saw the linesman take Cody Eakin to the penalty box, so I thought he was going to get a minor for something. Then they kicked him out of the game. I watched the replay, and my only opinion on it is that the linesman that dropped the puck called the penalty. And the reason I think he called it is because a linesman can typically only call a major penalty for an infraction where somebody gets hurt. Usually it's a high stick or a cross-check. And I don't think either ref saw it. So, unfortunately, that's all the linesman could call was a major, and I think that's why they called it was because of the severity of the injury on the ice. Gerard Gallant did say that one of the refs told him that Eakin cross-checked him in the face, which, of course, as you see the replay, it's not at all.
Didn't happen. But yeah,
I think Las Vegas just really lost their cool. And that whole swing of momentum was crazy, but good on Vegas for coming back to scoring to tie it back up, forcing overtime, and one of the most exciting finishes of any series was last night, and then I think tonight might be the second best. Although tonight wasn't as exciting, the intensity wasn't there, but.
And Martin Jones, you give him some credit too, because especially in that double overtime game in Game 6, man, he made 58 saves in that game, and Thomas Hertl scored the shorthanded the game winner in double overtime. That's actually the first time in NHL history that a shorthanded goal has been scored in double overtime. There'd only been some in the first overtime. So, but yeah, him there, and then because especially after he landed that third goal to Pacioretty there, I was just like, man, that there goes the Sharks season. But if you want one guy to get behind in the rest of the playoffs, could this be Joe Thornton's year finally? It could, because with his career coming to an end sooner rather than later here. And the Sharks, they do have the pieces. Erik Karlsson, as much as he was on the ice for the puck going in his net, he had 9 assists in that series, which was the second most by an NHL defenseman in a series. Only Paul Coffey and I forgot who the other guy, and Al McInnes had more assists in a series, and they both had 11, and those were I think in the mid 80s. I remember the stat off my head.
McInnes might have done it with St. Louis early on in the 90s too. So for me, I mean, Karlsson set up the winner. Martin Jones, for as much as we have given him, a bad rap here on the show for San Jose, his last 3 games he's played very well. Erik Karlsson absolutely played great, and you could tell he looks like he's still laboring. He's still injured somehow. I mean, he looked like he was hurt a couple times last night. But here's the one guy that San Jose needs in the lineup, and that's the guy that they were 4-0 with when he played a full game, Marc-Edouard Vlasic.
Oh, yeah.
0-3 without him or where he left, and they went 4-0 with him. And if that doesn't tell you how good of a defenseman Marc-Edouard Vlasic is, and why he was on Team Canada, we forget sometimes how good he is because Burns and Carlson are there.
Well, it's just especially with the way those guys play, because it's just like, I think Dylan and Ryan, they both had less than 10 minutes of ice time last night. I think Burns, he had like 42 minutes in Game 6, and then he had just under 40 minutes in Game 7. It's just like those guys were like absolute workhorses between him, Vlasic, Carlson, Braun, and Burns. They basically got ran into the ground.
It was kind of funny. Ryan hardly played throughout the 60 minutes. And then all of a sudden in overtime, Ryan was playing and Dylan didn't see the ice. It was almost like, hey, we got a spare guy. We're going to throw him out there now, right? I felt bad for Vegas. They had a great season. Marshall Show had some strong comments about the officiating after the game. But Vegas, I mean, they got a great team. But like I said, that once Vlasic came back, Stone, Stastny, and Pacioretty were only in on 1 goal in the last 3 games. Once Vlasic came back, and they had 28 points in the first 4 games of this series. So it goes to show you how big of a component Vlasic is. So that sets up San Jose at home against Colorado. Another great series coming up. I think, to me, that's going to be one of the more intriguing series to watch because of McKinnon is going to be playing Vlasic and Burns and Carlson all night long. And, man, it's going to be interesting. We'll talk. We'll make some predictions next game. Anything you want to add about the playoff series before we get into the rest of the show?
Yeah. I think that basically sums it up. We'll be touching on all the finalists for all the trophies that they've announced so far on Friday's show. We're just in a bit of a time constraint right now. We weren't expecting this game to go as long as it did, and just some other things as well. I got a hockey game that I gotta go to.
Well, it was nice of Carolina to wait and when we went live. So.
But you got our live reaction of the Hurricanes winning in double overtime, and I'll make sure to get that highlight up before I leave. But it's going to be it'll be a really interesting second round of the playoffs, just because so many of the teams that we thought were going to move on didn't. So it makes things actually a lot more interesting, because you got a lot of teams that you'll be really intrigued to see how they do moving forward. And like, I think the Sharks, they might be one of the front runners now to get to the Stanley Cup final. Just looking at the other 3 teams. And then in the East, I want to see if how Columbus and Boston matches up, if Columbus can keep things going there. And the Islanders and the Hurricanes, like, who saw those 2 teams going up in the second round? So especially if Carolina can, if everybody can start to get some healthy bodies in the second round, especially Carolina, I think they'll be happy to get Svechnikov and Ferland into the next round. But just, man, I'll say it once.
Crazy. It's crazy. I mean, you think about it. The finals from last year, Vegas and Washington, both out. The top 2 teams, Tampa and Calgary, both out. Top 2 teams in the Central, Winnipeg and Nashville, both out. Pittsburgh out. Like, who would have thought all of this? It's shaped up. It's pretty crazy. So.
All right.
We'll wrap up today's episode. We'll be back Friday with the next episode of B&B Hockey Talk. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like and share if you come across this on Facebook or YouTube. And on our Facebook page, B&B Hockey Talk, we post a lot of the highlights. You can go there for all those reactions. And, of course, remember to tell your friends about us. Continue to comment. Let us know what you thought of the first round of the playoffs. Who you got on the second round? And we'll see you guys all on Friday. Everyone have a great evening.